I'd spent the last 10 years building something tangible, something real. Not just a career in the demanding world of finance, where numbers dictated success and stress was a constant companion, but a future. Every extra shift, every skipped vacation, every ramen noodle dinner instead of going out, it all went into the savings account that held my dreams. My goal wasn't just a house to live in. It was a small commercial property, a place I could renovate, lease out the ground floor, and live in the apartment above. It was financial independence, a creative escape from the spreadsheets, proof that I could build something beautiful and lasting entirely on my own. I had finally hit the $800,000 mark. $800,000. It felt surreal even saying it in my head. I was so close. Pulling my sensible sedan into the familiar driveway of my childhood home after another 12-hour day felt particularly jarring that evening. The house looked the same, neat lawn, potted flowers on the porch, but something was different. Gleaming under the late afternoon sun, parked right where my mom usually kept her minivan, was a brand new, top-of-the-line, cherry red luxury SUV. It looked like it belonged in a music video, not in front of the house I grew up in, the house whose mortgage I'd helped my parents refinance years ago using my name. As I got out of my car, stretching the stiffness from my shoulders, the front door burst open. My younger sister, Chloe, spilled out onto the porch, squealing like a lottery winner, her freshly blown-out blonde hair bouncing. Mom and Dad followed behind her, beaming, each holding a glass of champagne. "Eleanor, look!" Chloe shrieked, running over to stroke the hood of the gleaming vehicle. "Isn't she beautiful?" My new car. I forced a smile, though a knot was forming in my stomach. Chloe hadn't held a job for more than 3 months in her entire adult life. Her last failed attempt at an online wellness crystal business had cratered after barely a month, leaving a trail of unsold inventory and maxed-out credit cards that I knew, instinctively, someone else had ended up dealing with. "It's very red," I managed. "Where did you get the money, Chloe?" Her face, usually quick to adopt a pout, stretched into a wide, dismissive grin. She flipped her hair, a gesture she'd perfected by imitating Mom. "Oh, don't start. Mom and Dad helped me out. Didn't you guys?" She turned, batting her eyelashes at our parents. Mom walked towards me, her champagne glass tinkling. She gave me that look, the one that said, "Don't make a scene, don't ruin this. Just be the good, quiet one." "Sweetheart," she said, her voice dripping with forced sweetness. Chloe needed a reliable car. For her opportunities. "We just used a little bit from that family account you set up." It was an emergency. My heart didn't just drop. It felt like it plummeted through the earth's crust. That family account wasn't an emergency fund. It wasn't a shared pool. It was my property fund. My $800,000. Everything I had worked for. Emergency. My voice was flat, empty. "Mom, that wasn't a family account. That was my property savings. That was my future." Chloe rolled her eyes from beside the car. "Oh, please, Eleanor. Don't be so dramatic. It wasn't all of it. And you're so good with money. You'll just save it again. You always say family comes first, right? Family comes first." The mantra of my life. The excuse they'd used for everything since I was a teenager. Family comes first when Mom needed help with bills because Dad retired early without savings. Family comes first when Chloe needed braces, and my college fund was raided. Family comes first when Dad needed help managing his maxed-out credit cards. Family comes first when Chloe needed tutoring because she was failing school and Mom was too tired. Family comes first. Family comes first, I repeated, pulling out my phone with trembling hands. I opened my banking app. The balance stared back at me, a devastatingly low number. The $800,000 was gone. Or at least, the vast majority was. There was barely enough left to cover a month's rent. "You left me with less than $5,000. And you didn't even ask me." Dad finally spoke up, clearing his throat awkwardly. "Now, Jacqueline." He always called me Jacqueline when he was nervous or about to scold me, falling back on the name he used when I was a kid causing trouble. "Eleanor, your sister has important job interviews coming up. She needs to make a good impression. We'll pay it back." I left then. A short, sharp, bitter sound that didn't contain an ounce of humor. Job interviews? The ones after the 4 jobs she quit in the last 2 years? Or the community college diploma she never finished? Chloe instantly burst into theatrical tears, right on cue. Mom. She's being mean, she wailed, running into Mom's arms. Mom hugged her tightly, shooting me a furious glare. Eleanor, please, Mom said, stroking Chloe's hair. You know, your sister has been going through a hard time. We need to support her. You've always been the strong one. The responsible one. The strong one. The responsible one. The one who fixed everything. The one who paid. The one who kept the secrets. I had been playing that role for 20 years, since I was 14, trying to get Chloe ready for school while Mom was still in bed, nursing another headache. A cold, hard resolve settled over me, chilling my initial shock and pain. You're right, I said quietly, my voice steady now as I tapped on my phone screen. I am the strong one. Mom's face softened slightly, a flicker of complacent relief. I knew you'd understand, sweetheart. And, I continued, my finger hovering over the call button, I'm also the one whose name is on every joint bank account in this family. The one who's been quietly paying off Dad's credit card since he retired, at 55 with 0 savings. The one who used her personal savings as collateral for the helic you took out last year when you wanted to renovate the kitchen. Dad froze, champagne glass halfway to his mouth. The forced smiles vanished from their faces. What are you doing? Mom whispered, her eyes wide with sudden panic. I brought the phone to my ear. Yes, hello, I said, my voice crisp and professional, the finance executive taking over. This is Eleanor Vance. Account number. Yes, that's right. I'd like to initiate an immediate closure and freeze on all associated accounts, particularly any with joint or linked access under the names Chloe Evans, Robert Evans, or Patricia Evans. Yes, I understand it will have consequences for those linked accounts. That is precisely what I intend. Mom lunged, trying to snatch my phone. I easily stepped back. You can't do this, Eleanor, she shrieked, her face contorted with fury. Actually, I said, looking directly at Chloe, whose teary face was now a mask of shock and confusion. I can. It's my money. And my name. Enjoy the car, Chloe. I hope it was worth it. As I walked back towards my car, Chloe found her voice again. You're just jealous, she screamed after me, mascara starting to run down her cheeks. Jealous that Mom and Dad love me more. That I'm actually living my life while you're stuck being boring. I stopped with my hand on the car door. I turned back and smiled, a slow, cold smile that didn't reach my eyes. You know what's funny about karma, Chloe? I asked. Her mouth snapped shut. It doesn't always wait. Sometimes it shows up immediately when someone truly deserves it. What does that mean? She demanded, stamping her foot. You'll see, I said softly, getting into my car. Give it, say, 72 hours? Give or take. When those credit cards stop working. When the bank starts asking questions. In my rearview mirror, I saw Dad frantically pulling out his phone, dialing. Mom was clutching Chloe, who was now sobbing hysterically. They looked like a twisted version of the perfect family portrait that hung in their living room, Mom and Dad on either side of their favorite daughter, a photo I'd paid for last Christmas. Just like I'd paid for so many other things. Not anymore. I drove away, hands shaking, the setting sun painting the sky in hues of orange and purple behind me. I pulled over a few blocks away and took a deep breath. Then I called Scott. Scott was a senior financial analyst at my firm, sharp as a tack, and one of the few people who knew vaguely about my family's tendencies. He had warned me for years. Stop being their ATM, he'd said. They'll bleed you dry. Scott? It's Eleanor. My voice was still trembling slightly. Remember how you told me to stop helping them? Well, I finally did something big. He answered immediately. About time. What happened? They took my property money, I said, the words feeling heavy on my tongue. $800,000. For Chloe's car. And other things. There was a pause on the other end. Then Scott's voice was serious. Okay. I'm coming over. Bring your laptop. We're going to need it. And everything you have on any joint accounts. Any loans you ever co-signed, anything. Yes, I thought. It was time to not just cut them off, but to understand the full depth of the hole they dug, using my shovel. I was done being their backup plan. Let Chloe enjoy her little kingdom built on stolen money and credit they couldn't afford. It was about to crumble. They say revenge is best served cold, but mine was just starting to simmer. For days, Scott and I were buried in financial statements, bank records, loan documents, and credit reports. My apartment became a war room, littered with printouts, empty coffee cups, and takeout containers. Helen, my best friend and the real estate agent who was helping me find my property, joined us whenever she could, providing much-needed moral support and a pragmatic outlook. "Just answer it, Scott said, sliding my phone across the table. It was Mom, the screen flashing her name. "They need to understand this isn't a game anymore." I stared at the phone. It had been 3 days since I cut them off. The barrage of calls and texts had been relentless. Begging, demanding, guilt-tripping, threatening. "Eleanor, please call us back immediately. It's an emergency. Your sister is making herself sick with worry. We raised you better than this. How can you abandon your own family? Your father's blood pressure is through the roof. This stress could kill him. Chloe's car payment is due. The bank is calling." "Oh, that's rich," Helen muttered, taking a sip of her coffee. "Raised you better? I remember you working 2 jobs in college so they could pay for Chloe's endless extracurriculars. Did they really raise me better?" I echoed, finally picking up the call, taking a deep breath. "Eleanor? Is that you?" Mom's voice was thin, panicked. "The bank called. And the credit card companies. They're saying accounts are frozen, credit lines canceled. What did you do?" "Exactly what I told you I would do," I said, keeping my voice calm and even. "I closed my accounts and removed all linked access. But your father's cards aren't working. We have bills to pay. Chloe needs. Chloe needs. Chloe needs." I cut her off, a sliver of ice in my tone. "What about what I needed, Mom? Like the future I've been building for 10 years? The $800,000 I saved for my property? You took it. All of it." "We didn't steal," she shouted, her voice cracking. "We borrowed. You know we'll pay you back." I laughed again, the same humorless sound as before. "Will you? Because Scott here helped me look at Dad's credit report. I'm still listed as an authorized user on 7 cards he maxed out years ago, and I've been making the minimum payments on them for the last 5 years without you even knowing. And that's just the tip of the iceberg, Mom." Silence. A long, heavy silence stretched between us. Then a whisper. "Jacqueline, please. Just come over. We can talk about this. We can fix it." Scott raised an eyebrow, giving me a questioning look. Helen shook her head slightly. "Sure," I said, surprising myself. "I'll be there in 20 minutes. I hung up before she could respond. "They need to see my face," I explained to Scott and Helen. "They need to see that this isn't just a financial transaction to me. This is about their choices. And when their world finally falls apart, I want them to know exactly who is watching." 20 minutes later, I walked back into that familiar living room. The air was thick with tension and the faint, stale smell of anxiety. Chloe was curled on the couch, mascara a black smear down her cheeks, sniffling dramatically. Dad was pacing near the window, phone glued to his ear, his face pale and drawn. Mom stood rigid by the fireplace, wringing her hands. The perfect family portrait seemed to mock the scene from the wall. "They won't budge," Dad exclaimed, hanging up his phone, looking frantic. "The bank is calling in all the credit lines by Sunday. Something about unsecured collateral." "That would be my savings account," I said, sitting down on the edge of the sofa, crossing my legs. "The one Chloe emptied for her shiny red car. And whatever else you used it for." "This isn't funny, Eleanor," Chloe wailed, sitting up abruptly. They're saying I might lose the car. Do you know how embarrassing that would be?" "Almost as embarrassing," I replied calmly, meeting her tear-filled eyes, "as having to tell the real estate agent I lost the $800,000 for my future because my family decided they needed a new car and a shopping spree more than I needed security." I paused, letting that sink in. Or maybe it's just as embarrassing as realizing my family has been systematically using me like their own personal ATM for years, bleeding me dry while I worked myself to the bone. "We never wanted to hurt you, sweetheart," Mom said, her voice cracking, tears welling in her eyes. "It's just, Things have been so tight since your father retired early. We didn't have savings. After I told him it was a terrible idea to retire at 55 with no plan, I added, looking at Dad. His face flushed red. Now listen here, young lady, he started, stepping towards me. No, you listen, I said, standing up, my voice rising slightly, filled with years of suppressed frustration and anger. For years, I cleaned up your messes. I paid your bills. I kept your secrets. I sacrificed my own opportunities so you could maintain a lifestyle you couldn't afford and enable Chloe's endless failures. And how do you thank me? By helping her steal the one thing I worked harder for than anything else in my life. My future. But you're so good with money, Eleanor, Chloe cried, stumbling over her words. You can just save it again. You're absolutely right, I said, walking towards the front door. I am good with money. That's why I'm cutting you all off. For good. Mom rushed forward, grabbing my arm. You can't do this to us. We're your family. I gently but firmly removed her hand from my arm. Parents are supposed to protect their children, I said softly, looking her in the eye. Not use them as a money backup. And they definitely don't steal one child's dreams just to fund another child's bad choices and unsustainable lifestyle. Eleanor, please, Dad said, his voice shaking, defeat finally starting to register on his face. Check your mail tomorrow, I said, opening the door. The bank and the credit companies are sending official letters about your defaulted accounts and called-in credit lines. I paused, a thought occurring to me. Oh, and Chloe? You might want to keep that bright red SUV in the garage tonight. Repo men often work after dark. I walked out and closed the door behind me with a quiet click. Outside, Scott was waiting in his car, the engine running. Helen was parked just down the street. I got in, buckling my seatbelt. You okay? Scott asked, his eyes searching mine. I looked up towards the house. Through the front window, I could see Mom already on the phone, probably calling her sister, begging for help. No, I answered honestly. But I will be. For the first time in my life. I think I actually will be. Back at my apartment, the war room was still spread out on the dining table. It had been 4 days since I cut them off, days filled with their escalating attempts to contact me. Scott and Helen were with me, sorting through documents. They're outside again, Scott said, peering through the blinds of my living room window. Your mom's crying in the car. Chloe's pressing every buzzer in the building. Even the neighbors are starting to come out onto their balconies. My phone lit up with another text from Chloe. You're destroying this family. How can you be so cruel? Actually, a voice said from the kitchen where Helen was making coffee, they're doing a fantastic job of destroying this family all by themselves. She walked in, carrying 3 steaming mugs. The repo guys picked up Chloe's beautiful car this morning, by the way, she said with a small, grim smile. I might have gotten a video. Show me, I said, reaching for her phone. The video played. Chloe was screaming hysterically in the street while 3 calm, professional men hooked the bright red SUV to a tow truck. Mom was trying to physically block the truck, yelling. Dad was waving papers at the men, looking desperate. Those papers, I said, watching the video closely. Are those the loan documents? Helen zoomed in. Yeah, looks like it. Why? Scott, I said, my voice suddenly cold. Remember that suspicious loan application you saw under my name? And the mortgage refinance guarantee? And Chloe's business loan. Scott's eyes widened. You don't think. I found out yesterday. I finished, a chilling realization washing over me. Going through the paperwork you sent me. Those signatures, they're not mine. They forged my signature. On the car loan, Chloe's business loan, the mortgage refinance guarantee, they used my name, my credit, to get hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt, thinking they were safe because they thought I'd always bail them out. This isn't just stealing my savings. This is identity theft. This is fraud. Helen let out a low whistle. Okay, that changes things. That's not just karma anymore. That's a federal crime. The buzzer to the building started ringing again, a long, continuous blast. Chloe's distorted voice came through the intercom, tinny and desperate. Eleanor, I know you're in there. You can't ignore us forever. Watch me, I muttered under my breath. But Helen was already striding towards the intercom panel by the door. She leaned into it, her voice loud and clear. Listen up, you spoiled brat. Your sister isn't coming down to save you or give you money. She knows exactly what you and your parents did. You want to fix this? Try getting a job. Or better yet, call a lawyer. You're going to need one. Scott nearly choked on his coffee. Wow, Helen. Harsh. But true, she said, turning back to me. Speaking of lawyers, did you file those identity theft charges yet? I'm doing it tomorrow morning, I said, pulling up the prepared documents on my laptop. The police reports, the evidence log, the notarized statement about the forged signatures. It was all ready. The buzzer started again, more frantic this time. Mom's voice joined Chloe's, both yelling over each other, begging, demanding, crying. That's it, Helen said, grabbing her purse. This is officially harassment. I'm calling the police. Wait, I said, standing up. No. I'll handle it. My heart was pounding, but my steps were steady. It was time to face them one last time on my terms, with the full weight of what they had done behind me. I took the elevator down to the lobby. As the doors opened, I saw Chloe's tear-streaked face pressed against the glass of the lobby door, Mom hovering anxiously behind her. The moment I opened the door, Chloe burst inside. Eleanor, do you even know what you've done? She shrieked, running up to me. The bank froze everything. Dad's being investigated. They're saying you might get charged with fraud. That's what happens, I said calmly, stepping further into the lobby, Scott and Helen now visible near the elevator watching. When you forge loan documents and steal someone's identity. We didn't forge anything, Mom exclaimed quickly, rushing forward too. We just used your name as a guarantor. You always helped us before. You always said family comes first. Always helped. The words echoed in my mind, unlocking years of buried resentment. You mean like when I was 16, waking up at 4 a.m. to tutor Chloe because she was failing math, and you were too tired? My voice didn't rise, but it was sharp cutting. Or when I worked 2 jobs in college while Chloe dropped out of 3 different schools, using the money you gave her, money that often came from me? That's not fair, Chloe cried, stepping closer. You're just jealous. Jealous of me. Jealous of what, Chloe? I cut her off, finally letting the raw truth out. Jealous that Mom and Dad love you more? That you're their golden child who can do no wrong? They can keep their love. I'm done paying for it. Please, Eleanor, Mom said, reaching for my hand again, her voice a desperate plea. We can fix this. Just tell the bank it was all a mistake. I pulled my hand away as if her touch burned. Like when I was 10 and you took my birthday money from Grandma to pay for Chloe's expensive dance classes. Or last Christmas when Dad borrowed my credit card for Chloe's impulsive trip to Miami. I looked from Mom to Chloe, then back. Those weren't just isolated incidents, were they? No. Those were practice runs. You've been testing my limits my whole life, seeing how much I'd give before I finally broke. My voice was cold, hard. Well, you did it. You finally broke me. And now, I'm done. Chloe's face fell, her entitled anger giving way to genuine fear. But you're my sister, she stammered. You're supposed to protect me. I did protect you, I said, my voice softening slightly, but not with warmth, with finality. For 31 years, I protected you from facing the consequences of your actions. I protected you from the real world. But not anymore. Just then, a police car pulled up outside, lights flashing softly. Helen stepped out from her car right behind it and walked towards the officer. Miss, the officer said, approaching the lobby door. We received a call about harassment. That's them, officer, Helen said, pointing towards Chloe and Mrs. Evans. They've been harassing my friend for days. Mom's face went ashen. Jacqueline, you wouldn't? I would, I said, stepping back inside the building, putting the glass door between us. And if you come here again, if you call me, if you text me, if you try to contact me in any way, I will add it to the identity theft and fraud charges I am filing tomorrow morning. Identity theft. The officer's face turned serious. Ma'am, he said to Mom and Chloe, his tone firm. I need both of you to step away from the building immediately. I watched through the lobby windows as the officer spoke to them, guiding them back towards their car. Chloe looked back once, her face a mixture of anger, fear, and utter shock. Mom didn't look back at all. She just got into the car, her shoulders slumped. Upstairs, Scott and Helen were waiting. The quiet hum of Scott's laptop, the only sound besides our breathing. The stack of documents on the table felt less like a burden now and more like evidence of my liberation. "They're gone," I said, sinking onto the couch, exhaustion washing over me. "For now, anyway." Helen sat beside me, putting a comforting arm around my shoulders. "You know what the best kind of revenge is?" she asked gently. I thought for a moment. "Living well." She smiled, a genuine warm smile. "Nope. Buying that dream property you were saving for. Only bigger and better. And guess what?" She gestured towards her tablet. "I just found a listing that hit the market this morning. Perfect location, needs renovation, and it fits your budget perfectly, now that you're not supporting for people anymore." For the first time in days, a real smile touched my lips. It felt strange, a little rusty. "Show me," I whispered. Scott cleared his throat from the table. "You won't believe this either, Al." His laptop screen glowed softly in the dim room. While I was doing a final sweep of those old joint accounts and loan documents, I found something else. It was past midnight again. We'd been poring over everything for hours. Empty takeout boxes littered the table, silent witnesses to our financial archaeology. "Look at this," Scott said as I leaned over his shoulder. He pointed to a complex diagram on the screen, a web of transfers and account names. "See these transfers? And this account name here." He zoomed in on a name I didn't recognize. "Every month for the last 7 years, small amounts of money have been systematically draining from that old joint account you opened with your mom in college, the one you completely forgot about, and moving into this account. Then, from there, it went to pay a specific tuition bill. For a private high school." My blood ran cold. "A private high school?" "Chloe went to Northwood for her senior year. Mom and Dad said they got a scholarship. Or that the tuition was waived because they were helping the school somehow." Scott shook his head slowly, a grim expression on his face. "They didn't get a scholarship, Bill. They didn't waive the tuition. They listed you as the guarantor on the enrollment contract, citing your income and the money in that joint account. And they've been using it like a hidden pipeline, siphoning money from you every month for 7 years to cover it through automatic withdrawals." Anger, hot and fierce, surged through me, mixing with the cold rage already there. "So that's why they insisted I keep that old account open. They said it was, just in case, a fallback. It was a backdoor." "Yeah," Helen said, shaking her head in disgust. "The emergency wasn't anything real. The emergency was their lifestyle and Chloe, well, being Chloe." My phone buzzed. A text from Mom. "Your father is in the ER. His blood pressure is dangerously high. Please, Eleanor. If you ever loved us, please." "Don't answer," Helen said immediately, reaching for the phone. "They're trying to pull you back in. It's the fake emergency playbook again." "I know," I said, pacing, rubbing my temples. "But what if he actually is sick?" "Then that's their problem," Scott said firmly, closing his laptop. "They made their choices, all. 4 years. This is the consequence." Another message popped up, this time from Chloe. "If anything happens to Dad, it's your fault. I'll never forgive you." I took the phone from Helen. My fingers flew across the keyboard, typing back quickly, my voice cold and steady. "If anything happens to Dad, it's because of the choices you all made. Choices that now have real consequences. Don't contact me again." I put the phone down. It felt final. It was final. "What are you going to do now, Al?" Helen asked softly. I looked at the stack of documents on the table. Proof of forged signatures, fake loans, years of systematic theft, a lifetime of emotional manipulation and financial abuse. The weight was immense, but it was also fuel. "I'm filing every single charge, Scott, and I documented," I said, looking at the new property listing on Helen's tablet. "Identity theft, fraud, everything. I'm going to let the law handle the consequences they brought on themselves." I wasn't sure what the future held for them. Legal battles, financial ruin, maybe even jail time for the fraud. That was their path now. Mine was different. Mine involved renovations, tenants, a little apartment over a shop. It involved waking up knowing my name, my money, and my future were finally, completely my own. The $800,000 was gone, stolen by the people who were supposed to love and protect me. But the lesson learned, the boundaries finally enforced, and the freedom I felt, that was priceless. The best kind of revenge wasn't just living well. It was building something they could never touch. And I was just getting started.